As I was forming this talk, I was sitting on a porch in a cabin at a local state park, listening to the rain, hearing traffic on a nearby street, looking out at the trees under a very grayish sky, and watching the lake that was receiving the gift of raindrops. And remembering a quote from Ram Dass that I had heard the past Friday from my dear yoga teacher, a wise benefactor in my life. And the quote says, "Everything in your life is there as a vehicle for your transformation. Use it." So we'll come back to that throughout this talk. So I was at this cabin with my retreat buddy, Louise. And any of you who've been around in January remember that I was at the same cabin with my buddy Louise when I gave a Dharma talk. I'm back home now, so Louise is just here in spirit. And we were participating in the third online retreat offered by Sharon Salzberg and Sylvia Borstein on the paramis, the perfections. And the title is A Direct Path to Happiness. So I'll share some of the thoughts from that as well as other experiences. And there was a particular focus in this session on responding to difficult and painful situations. They stated that it occurred to them at some point that rather than starting the practice with meditation, to develop the capacity for the paramis and for these heart qualities. And if you're wondering, and I'll post them in the chat later, hopefully, fingers crossed with my technological competence, but things like generosity, morality, renunciation, releasing, letting go, wisdom, energy, or as they interpreted it, courage, patience, truthfulness, determination, loving kindness, and equanimity. So 10 paramis in the Theravadan tradition to be practiced or to be meditated on, to be developed, and as a fruit of the practice as well. But their approach was, if we cultivate these actions in our ordinary regular life, we can do that. We can be kinder to our families. We can be more patient with our coworkers. That seems manageable. So they told many stories around this topic. And certainly meditation creates a space in which we can respond differently with these heart qualities, not out of our habitual conditioned reactions, but acting on the intention to create the space to be more truthful or respond with more generosity, to act and behave more ethically, doing less harm, and making the commitment to respond with a different energy, not the energy of hatred, greed, aversion, but the energy of courage and kindliness. Now, that doesn't mean that if I practice cultivating these traits, I'll always be joyful or happy right away, and there'll be no pain. The first noble truth is still there. Life is difficult. And as Sharon and Sylvia kept reminding us through the retreat, some things just hurt. It isn't about not hurting or pushing away the pain. It's about how I choose to respond to the pain, to the sadness, the loss. Responding out of the intention to do no harm to myself or another, cultivating that non-harming morality, to be more truthful with myself, to see the truth more clearly, so that I'm not piling on unnecessary suffering on top of my pain. These actions can lead to peace, the joy of no regret, of wholesome intention. Now, Sylvia and Sharon, if you've attended their retreats or know their practice, are just amazing storytellers. And they told stories of their own ordinary experiences with situations that just hurt, and what to do with that pain, as Ram Dass stated, for acceptance and transformation. Sylvia shared some very moving stories, including stories around the death of her husband, a husband of over 60 years who died about 17 months ago. And the story of a granddaughter with all the women in the family and men in the family around giving birth in her home with complications that required her going to hospital and a lot of anxious moments. She's fine. She and the baby are fine. But there was anxiety and worry and pain in that process. And their generous sharing helped me to decide to have the courage to share what is my current major challenge in this moment. My partner and I of many years have decided to separate, perhaps for a while, perhaps forever. A lot of uncertainty. And we're doing this letting go, this releasing of each other to see what our own paths need to be. And I'm so appreciative of the practice, especially as Susan and Bill have shared with us and nurtured, and that Sharon and Sylvia have affirmed that accepting and embracing this just hurts doesn't mean I'm a bad meditator. It doesn't mean I'm an unskillful Buddhist. You know, some things just hurt. The loss of a loved one and the changing of a dear relationship. And letting go sometimes just hurts, even if that's the wisest thing to do. Our practice helps us not add layers onto that pain and suffering. And the benefits of the practice I've been able to draw on, that my partner and I, that we've been able to draw on, involves not turning to aversion, not turning to hatred and anger and animosity, no blaming, no making somebody else the bad guy or the wrong one, not clinging to an only wished for reality, but having the courage to see reality as it is. And we're both doing our best by accepting that this just hurts and being able to be with that without running away from it. With being truthful about the pain and the heartache and the sadness without adding worrying, obsessing, ruminating about what might, what if, what could go wrong. All the things that would be so easy to storytell about. Just being with sadness and loving at the same time. And in this process, I thought about all the people all over the world who are being separated from ones they love, sending family members into combat, into war, sending children off to college, saying goodbye to a family member who may be leaving for a whole new country to try to make a living that can support the family. I wished all of us comfort for our aching hearts. I wished all of us safety and ease of well-being, and I loved each of them and all of them, and can feel the warmth and comfort and softening in my heart as I had these thoughts. I also thought of all those whose loved ones are coming home safely from war, and the joy and the relief in welcoming that family member home. All those who are being reunited, who are coming together, getting married, just beginning relationships. And I felt their joy, and my heart just burst open because I am supported by their joy. I am happy for their happiness, and my heart is comforted by their joyfulness, their joy infusing my aching heart. And then I thought of the story of Shakyamuni Buddha leaving his family. And I must admit, I've always been a bit judgmental about that. Come on, that's pretty selfish, right? You're leaving your young wife, your newborn son behind. How could you do that? But I thought about it differently from this perspective of my difficulty, from my pain. Leaving his wife, his new child, his parents. And for the first time, I really felt the pain and sadness of that. The pain and sadness that he experienced, the angst of coming to that decision that I need to do this to follow my path. The fear and uncertainty he and his family must have felt. I wondered what difficult, gut-wrenching conversations they must have had, and the honesty and courage they must have had to engage in that separation. My heartache led me to much greater compassion for the Buddha and for all those who are separated from what we all hold most dear. And again, my heart melted a bit more and found more ease. Life is difficult, and sometimes things just hurt. I don't have to make it worse by judging, criticizing, blaming, accusing, clinging. I can use it transformationally, and I can find comfort in realizing that I share this human experience with all people, even the Buddha. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you so very much. Let's practice. Let's practice. And as we always do, start with our bodies being here in this moment, grounding ourselves in just now, only here, taking care to move in any way that brings some opening and comforting, unclenching of what might have gotten tight, constricted, shut down. What can be softened just a bit more? Shoulders, creaky neck muscles, jaws, even fingers and hands, shaking out, letting go, airing out, and just settling into that safe and comforting holding environment. Being with the breath that's always here for us. that's always supporting us, whether we're thinking about it or not. Letting it bring its own comfort in its own way. Nothing to make happen. Just being with. And as we begin to settle in, I'd like to just share. It's not a poem, it's a reading. It may have come from one of our other teachers here, and I don't know where it came from. How to open your heart. Do not try to open your heart now. That would be a subtle movement of aggression towards your immediate embodied experience. Never tell a closed heart it must be more open. It will shut more tightly to protect itself. Feeling your resistance, a heart unfurls only when conditions are right. Your demand for openness invites closure. This is the supreme intelligence of the heart. Instead, bow to the heart in its current state. If it's closed, let it be closed. Sanctify the closure. Make it safe, safe even to feel unsafe. Trust that when the heart is ready and not a moment before, it will open like a flower in the warmth of the sun. There's no rush for the heart. Trust the opening and the closing too, the expansion and the contraction. This is the heart's way of breathing. Safe, unsafe, safe, unsafe. The beautiful fragility of being human and all held in the most perfect love. So let's practice holding ourselves in that perfect love or imperfect love. Just love, whatever that is. With hearts open to the extent they're ready to open. Loving as we're ready to love. Letting our energies come together to support us in caring attention.
And just notice in this moment, what use are you making of whatever arises? How best are you honoring this moment? With caring interest, how might I best savor any joys of this moment or comfort any pains in this moment?
May my joy gladden your aching heart. And may your gladness lighten my heavy heart. May we and those we hold dear be happy and well. May we and those we hold dear be safe and free from harm. May we and those we hold dear be supported in health and wellness. May we and those we hold dear live with ease and the peace of well-being. May we use everything in our life as a vehicle for transformation. Thank you so much for your practice. Let me